Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre likes to say, Canada is broken. And the response from the Prime Minister and the Liberal Party is, oh, how can you say that? You're just sowing division in the country. You're just undermining our institutions. Well, it's not just Pierre Poilievre who thinks the country is broken. Lots of people do. In fact, in a Leger poll for the National Post, 67% of Canadians said, 67% said they thought the country was broken. And they know that number, that statement is closely associated with Pierre Poilievre. So it's quite a thing to get 67% of the country to say that. I've been in journalism now for 30 years. I've never seen, is the country going in the wrong direction poll question receive that high a negative response. So lots of Canadians think the country's broken. You can't get a passport. You can't get through an airport. You can't deal with the government. 70% of the federal government workers are still at home. I mean, the pandemic's been over for more than a year. In most provinces, there have been very few restrictions since March of 2022. And yet, federal civil servants are still at home working. And now they want pay raises of between 25 and 47%. That's what makes it seem like the system is broken. You're getting very little work done by the federal government. What work is being done is sometimes incompetent, often incompetent. The federal cabinet is really, really, really good at making promises and spending money, but it doesn't follow up. It doesn't check to see whether or not the tasks that they've set out for the civil service has actually been done. And if anybody suggests that you audit the civil service to see whether they're doing the work, the government shrieks in horror. How can you not trust our marvelous public sector? They're the best public sector in the world. I've heard that from several Liberal cabinet ministers. We have the best civil service in the world. I find that a little hard to believe. We have some good civil servants, but it's not the best civil service in the world. But don't just take my word for it, and don't just take the response of Canadians. The response of Canadians is very important. The 67% who think the country is broken is doubly interesting because more women than men think the country is broken, and more young people than old people think the country is broken. I mean, typically, it's us grumpy old white guys who get blamed for bringing down the mood. But in the most recent surveys of whether the country is broken or not, it's women more than men and young people more than old people. But it's not just ordinary Canadians or those of us who make our livings running our mouths off. It's also Yves Giroux, who is the parliamentary budget officer, who said in Parliament earlier this week that, yes, indeed, the civil service, the federal civil service is broken. The government's really, really good at making promises. It's very, very good at spending money it doesn't have, but it never follows through. It can make a promise to improve healthcare. It can make a promise to secure the border. It can make a promise that it's going to improve the airport service, but it never does any follow through. It doesn't accomplish a thing. The country's not broken. The government's broken, but it's broken big time. For Postmedia, I'm Lorne Gunter.